through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still have me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a brand new Chasing the Pennant podcast. I'm excited today. We got some new news to talk about, but more importantly, today's podcast is going to be about roster predictions, and we're all super excited to share what we think. With me today, I'm Sean New hosting, and with me is Joe Borek. Joe, how you doing, bud?
Good. Always excited to talk about baseball, especially to get my mind off the fact that the Flyers blew another lead yesterday. So it's a good thing to talk about baseball.
Yeah, I actually lost a lot of money last night. I'm not happy about it at all. So it was like a double punch in the nuts, but we'll bounce back tonight, I guess. And also with me is Joe Berardi. Biscuit, how you doing, bud?
Gosh, hearing you say my full name. Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk about the Phillies. It's great that we've been pumping out some consistent shows over the last couple of days. So I'm ready to get to it.
Yeah, I am too. And I only said that because I can see your full name on Skype. I just kind of ran with it.
That's okay.
Your camera broke, so I'm just staring at your initials, and I felt it was right to say your full name. I don't know.
It's okay.
So,
Joey Joseph.
So let's jump right into it. We're going to do some roster predictions, like I said. We're going to start easy with the infield. I'll throw this one over to you, Borek. Who's your starting four? I think this is pretty simple, but I'd like to hear you say it.
Yeah, Hoskins, Segura at second because I can't stand him at shortstop. And we re-signed Didi, so he's playing shortstop. And then Alec Boehm, at least for now, at third base until he proves he can't field at third base, which I don't think is going to happen. I think that's overblown by a landslide. So that would be my infield.
I completely agree. I mean, it's pretty obvious that's what it is. Bessie, you got any other takes on that, or is that your starting four?
Well, see, how I look at it is it's complicated to me because what if Rhys Hoskins isn't ready for opening day? I think that really makes this whole thing a little bit more complicated in the sense that, are you going to see Boehm go to first base, which I think most likely is what would happen. This is why, as much as the team has gotten better, they still really do need another formidable bench off the bat because right now it's still pretty shorthanded. Who kind of, Correct. If you take Boehm to first base, does that mean Gene Segura is going back to third? Does that mean Scott's going into second base? If he was going to start in center field, who's going to start in the outfield? So, ideally, obviously, it would be exactly how you guys said it would be. Hoskins at first, Segura at second, Didi at short, glad he's back, and Alec Boehm at third. But I think right now there's still a lot of pessimism with Rhys Hoskins returning on time. A lot of people aren't very optimistic that that's going to happen. But we'll see in that regard.
Yeah, the only thing I disagree with what you said, Biscuit, was I would say our bench is very shorthanded, not pretty.
You get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I think in that case, honestly, and one thing that we're about to talk about bench guys, but one thing that I think is going to happen is somebody like Chatham that we got from the Red Sox, somebody I could see if he has a pretty decent spring. I could easily see him getting the starting job at second and moving Segura over to third if the case was that we lost Hoskins for the first little bit of the season. Obviously, Kingery can play second base, but I think they want to keep him somewhat in the outfield or, use him as a super utility guy as of right now. But what do you guys think the bench looks like at this point? Who makes the opening day bench for the infield as far as the infield is concerned?
I'll go first.
Biscuit, yeah.
I think it'll probably be Hazley, or Kingery in center field. So whichever one's not going to get more of the starting reps in center field, I think let's say it's going to be Kingery for right now. So I think the bench will be Hazley, Roman Quinn, Andrew Michael Knapp, and really, I as you mentioned, Sean, C.J. Chatham. I think he's probably going to get a shot most likely. But other than that, like, this is really, like, if you look at this place, I think this is becoming a pretty glaring issue, more so than the bullpen at this point. Like, this has been left pretty pretty neglected at this point of the offseason. And if Hoskins isn't ready, man, like, you really trust any of those guys? I mean, none of them are really big names. None of them are known for their offensive prowess. I worry with that spot, but I think those are probably the four most likely names at this point.
What do you think about that, Bork?
Yeah, I think those are the most likely names. I actually back you. I agree with Chatham. He's usually hit very well in the minors and just hasn't got it going yet in the majors.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was a really sneaky pickup by Dombrowski. He knows him. He's the one that drafted him, if I'm not mistaken. So he really knows him. And I think he's a guy that people think there's not a lot more, but definitely more in what he's shown. People think he could at least be a utility guy. He should at least be with the way he hit in the minors, I think a better version of Brock Holt, which would be a very useful thing to have on your team if somebody becomes a better fielding version. And because after all, Brock Holt did make one All-Star game. So if you're able to get someone that's a little bit better version of Brock Holt, that would not be a bad thing. And I think Chatham hasn't really hit his peak yet. I think he's been more of a fielder in the majors, which is not even what he was accustomed to be in the minors. It was kind of funny. And then in the minors, he hits the heck out of the ball and misses some fielding. Still fields well, but misses some plays. That's why it's funny how well he did in the majors. But I think he'll end up working out pretty well for us and end up, if he has to start, he'll do fine. And I think that might likely be the case because of what you said about Kingery. They kind of want him to be the Zobrist of the team and do whatever he can and everything. And we have to hope he has a bounce back year too if you don't get help for the bench, because he can't. Last year I'll excuse because he had a terrible case of COVID and the year was just whack. Right. But this year he definitely has to come back and bounce back. Otherwise you're going to have a big issue with that bench, because right now, if you go an extra man deep on your bench and take one less bullpen spot, depending what the Phillies decide to do to start the season, that extra man is probably Mickey Moniak, who hasn't shown yet that he's ready for the MLB. Right. So that's why you need, I think, like Biscuit said, to get one more bench player, because having Hazley, Quinn, we didn't even mention, potentially on the bench, and others is not enough to get you to compete. You have no depth. You're basically Golden State, except for you're not even one of the best teams in the league. you have the depth of what the Warriors have when winning championships, except for you're still not very good. Like, you're not one of the best teams in baseball. That's when you can use the excuse you don't have a great bench because you spent so much money on your top assets. Well, Phillies have enough money to sign bench people. $13 million is enough money to get a lot of good bench people. So, you should be able to figure that out, and that's something they definitely need to focus on.
I agree. I think one guy, and I wrote this down, and I mean, a lot of people have different opinions on him, but as far as a bench bat goes, I really like Marwin Gonzalez.
Yes.
From the Twins, I believe, last year. I looked at I looked at his fielding stats, and he has played at least 130 games at every position except center and right, but in left he has almost 200 games played. This guy can play anywhere, and in my opinion, that's a guy that you can get for $5 million or less, and I truly believe that that's somebody that this team needs. It's a true bat off the bench. It's somebody that can play anywhere, including the outfield if you really need him to. He could play first if Hoskins misses time. He has experience at first base. He's not a natural first baseman, but he's played there. And like you said, we have $13 million left before we reach the luxury tax, which we all believe that the Phillies aren't going to go over. I truly believe that this is somebody that we need to get. It's somebody that isn't going to cost too much. He had a really down year last year. He batted .261 in his career, but in 2020. He batted .211 with a .286 on base in over like 55 games, I'm going to say. And for a Twins team that made the playoffs, that's like, how did he not succeed, especially in that lineup? So I think that he can come to Philly and be a nice bat off the bench. I mean, that's just my hot take. I truly think the Phillies go out and get a guy like that. I
Sean,
don't know if you guys disagree, but
I completely agree. No, I would love that type of pickup. And I know you have the stats pulled up right now because I'm looking at you and I have them up too. Get a look at that 2017 season. That's not a small sample size. That is a season's worth of baseball that man played. Batting average 303, on base percentage 377. I'm getting giddy just kind of looking at this pickup. This would be great. Well, think about it. This would be great for so many reasons. He could theoretically start at first base if Hoskins isn't ready. He could be there if Kutch needs a day off, if he's, needs a day or so. He can really play anywhere around the diamond except for pitcher and catcher. This is what, if Scott Kingery could be Marwin Gonzalez, I think obviously Scott Kingery, would be a little disappointed if he only ended up being someone like Marwin Gonzalez, but that would be phenomenal if that's the type of player he could be. I would be all over this move. I think they need a guy who's someone exactly like this. He's durable. He can play anywhere. He's got a pretty decent bat. And you're right. It would only cost him probably around $5 million. I completely agree with you, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that makes sense for the Phillies right now, especially like we said, 13 million left before we hit the tax that we don't think they're going to go over. It just makes too much sense, and especially with some of these guys missing time, and especially with guys like Segura, who always misses time out of nowhere with a random hamstring injury every single season. Yeah. I just see it as perfect, and like we were talking about, and we've touched on it already a little bit. He can play the outfield. So I'll throw it to Borek. Borek, who do you think is starting in the outfield opening day?
Well, that's a miracle question, honestly, when it comes to center field. Harper and Kutch, obviously, in the other two positions. One guy I was going to say in response to who you think I could sign, if he gets signed, I think, or start. One is JBJ is definitely starting. Two, though, a guy that I think is underrated that they could go after. He's a career 262 hitter. And went off with Colorado last year and was a clutch hitter while in Boston, et cetera. The list goes on. I don't feel like naming all the teams Kevin Pillar's played for. But Kevin Pillar would not be a bad pickup either. He's Gold Glove potential. Could probably hit better in Citizens Bank like he killed Coors Field. So I think him coming here would be a nice sneaky pickup. And if we were to pick up him, I think he would be our starting center fielder to start day one at least, and then it would probably platoon with Hazley as time goes on. If he doesn't get signed, then I would say you have to roll with Adam Hazley because he's the only guy that's shown some consistency as of yet and doesn't end up on the injury block as the Michael Neuwirth of the Phillies, basically, which is what, unfortunately, Roman Quinn is. He's the Michael Neuwirth for Flyers fans of the Philadelphia Phillies. He might do good for a short stretch, but then he's injured for 7 months. And it's unfortunate. I feel bad for him, but you can't start him because he's just not going to stay healthy enough. And if you go in thinking he's your starter, you're going to be in a bind pretty quickly. So I would say start Hazley if you don't sign anybody, get his back going, get him going, and that's really your only option in my eyes if you don't sign him. Because I wouldn't start Kingery in center. He made some fielding blunders in my miss. I understand Hazley.
So did Hazley.
He's Gold Glove caliber guy if you watch him in the minors. He just has to learn this crappy center field of Citizens Bank Park. Citizens Bank Park center field sucks. I've toured the park. Like, it's a terrible for fielding. Like, it sucks. You have that caddy corner over here, and you have a deeper path over here. It's not an easy center field to field. Ask Shane Victorino. He talked about it all the time. He's going to learn center. Kingery can't track a fly ball that well unless if he got better at it. He always just catches up to it because of his speed. Kingery reminds me of Quinn. Quinn, in my opinion, is not he just catches everything because of his speed. He's really not that good of a fielder. He literally, if you watch him, his routes suck. He just catches the ball because of his speed. That's the same with Scott Kingery. That's why I don't trust him in the long haul in center field, unless if he gets better at route running to the ball, which is something I saw from what somebody tweeted. I can't remember who it was a couple weeks ago that covers the Phillies, said Hazley's been really working on as well as hitting, and it seems like our new management might like Adam Hazley more than Matt Glentak, who disliked him for no explicable reason whatsoever. So that's the way I look at that. You don't really have another option unless if Kingery gets better at fielding and hits. Because Hazley, in my opinion, at least can hit 250. At this point, I don't know if Kingery's going to hit 250 until I see it.
Right. In my opinion, the way they're looking at center field right now is that to me is, while all of us fans agree that it's probably the weakest point in the Phillies, starting 9 at this point, it's one position that I don't think the Phillies are even considering upgrading, because right now you have probably 4 guys that are going to compete for that spot come opening day and throughout all of spring training. And that's, like we said, Kingery, Hazley, Quinn, and even Moniak. I think they're leaving it up to him. If he ends up going on a tear in spring training, there's no reason for him not to come up. We saw how he hit in the majors. He didn't hit very well. I don't have his stats right in front of me, but he didn't do well when he came up at the end of last year, but he was up. He got major league experience. So in my opinion, he is right there in the race with all these guys. Obviously, these other guys have at least proven a little bit, but right now you have 4 guys that the Phillies view are potential starting center fielders come opening day. So in my opinion, while I would love Jackie Bradley Jr. and while I would love Kevin Pillar for both of them for their defense and at least somewhat offensive ability, I don't see them going after one of those guys. And we've even been rumored to look at Brett Gardner. It doesn't make sense to me. I think they're looking for bench guys, not so much defensive center fielders with some consistency. They're going to run with whoever comes out hot after spring training. What do you think, Biscuit?
Yeah, I don't think they're in on Jackie Bradley Jr. I don't want to burst Andrew's bubble from the other night with his bold take, but no, I just don't feel it in my gut. I feel like the rumors were never really there from the get-go. It just didn't seem like a name they were linked to. I agree with you, Sean. They're not going to really – I don't see them targeting a center fielder just because you mentioned all those guys who are going to be competing for that spot. Just in terms of Mickey Moniak, I think he's going to be down in the minors. I don't see him getting a shot in center field. Obviously, he's a name to throw in the mix, but I just don't think he's there yet. I think – seeing him come up last season was really just out of necessity alone. But I think center field Scott Kingery's position to lose for the sole reason that he has more upside than any of the other guys he would be competing with. Scott Kingery, keep in mind, signed a major league deal for millions of dollars before he stepped on a diamond. Adam Hazley, he just didn't really look defensively sound last year. He had a few nice hits, but also with Adam Hazley, you're not really getting any pop. They're all kind of just just scooting past an infield or just trickling out into center field. And as Borek mentioned, Roman Quinn's the glass man. I think, look, Scott Kingery's got to prove it at some point. I think the time is now. Sure, he had COVID last year, and obviously that really played a huge part in his performance. I think heavily so. But hopefully hopefully this year he's really given a shot to prove himself once again. But I don't know how many more chances you can give Scott Kingery. He's kind of becoming like the Vince Velasquez to me of the lineup or the infield. Just you can keep throwing him out, but if nothing sticks, it's time to cut the cord.
Yeah, I have one thing though with Kingery. My thing is, there was that argument that some insiders had of, is moving him around the reason he's not succeeding? Because some guys can't move around. Some guys need to focus. Like, think of John Mayberry Jr., for example. Dude couldn't hit a lick unless if he was playing center field. For who knows why, but his stats, if you go back and look at them, were 80 times better when he played center field. He blew in every other position when it came to hitting.
Now, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think he could start in center field. I think if he starts in center field full time, then he's not being moved around as much. I think if he goes into the season knowing that he's going to be the center fielder, that's his position. It's his to lose. And if he wants to start every day, if he wants to be a big contributor on this team, that's what he's got to do. Yeah. Not everything can be handed on a silver spoon to a player. And I get the guy needs chances to prove himself, and he's going to get chances, and I'm sure he'll get chances in the infield again. But as of right now, you can't just sit here and say that he's going to have a spot guaranteed to him in this infield when you have Didi Gregorius and Gene Segura there locking it up.
Well, here's a bold take since Andrew gave a bold take, so I'll be Gabe Kapler in this one and be bold.
Oh, God.
But but I will say I've always liked Kingery. I mean, I didn't name more podcasts that Andrew and I do jetpacks to the bank for no reason. Uh, so I think he still has potential. The thing is, I think he's going to best succeed. He might emerge in center, and I would be happy if that does happen, Biscuit, if he's either starting full bore or knows he's going to mainly play center, platooning with Hazy. Either way you go, you should mainly play him in one position and just move him around a little bit. I think once Segura leaves, ideally Kingery's your future second baseman that takes off at that position. And I think that is what's going to happen. And then whoever's your center fielder is going to be your center fielder because Kingery has pop, but he has at most Pedroia pop, and not the overall player of Dustin Pedroia, but I mean like the home run.
That's good enough for me.
Where at most, if you want more of a guy like the next Springer on the market, I wouldn't say Kingery's going to keep you from going after that, especially when Segura is playing at the last stretch of his prime. It's not like Segura is getting any younger. He's in the last about 2 to 3 years of his prime, and I don't even think he's going to be on the team for all those years. So that's why I think after this year, like I said in last podcast, I think Segura's out of here. So that's why I would say Kingery's going to play second, unless if he like makes the All-Star game and goes off if there is one. And then Kingery would be at second, being your steady second baseman for the future. If he is your steady center fielder, I'm fine with that. Either way, he'll be a steady position player and become what we think at least close to what we thought he was going to be over time. I don't blame him for last year. He had a bad strain of COVID. You can't blame a guy for coming back from COVID and having a struggling season. Garrett Hampson was the same way in Colorado, for example. He said he would run from first to third and then feel like he was about to die when he got into the dugout because he still had the effects of COVID. So I don't blame him at all for that. I think he's going to be a very successful player in time for this team, which is probably going to piss off Shane that we compliment Scott.
I'm honestly, I'm not as high on Scott Kingery. I love the dude. I really wish him, obviously, the most success. I wish he became the star that I think is in there, but I'm just not high on him at this point. I'm at the point where you got to see it to believe it. His struggles are just, they don't just date back to last year. Obviously, last year he had COVID, so he, that was holding him back, but he did struggle the other 2 seasons as well. I just don't see it. And even long term, I disagree with you about second base. I think that's going to be Bryson Stott's position. I don't know,
Well, did he
I don't
only
know
have
what the
2
future
years?
holds. Right, but at the same time, I just don't see really a situation where if Stott is going to be not like a star, he's not going to be like a Soto or a Acuna, but he's going to be that supplementary piece that comes up, kind of like what would be a good comp to him?
A infielder version of Jason Worth, maybe.
I don't even think he'll be that. Obviously, Jason Worth had some really good years.
His comp when he was drafted was, I believe, Brandon Crawford, and if he's any player like that, I'd be all right with that.
But then he should stay at short.
I agree.
Brandon Crawford was
right, but I think his future, and a lot of people have agreed, it sticks at second base. And while this isn't relevant to this year, I do think that I do agree with Biscuit here. I was going to say that I do think once Segura's gone from second, I think, we don't know where Kingery is going to end up, where he's going to stick, if he's even still with the team. Any of these, factors come into play. But I do think that Stott has a future as a middle infielder, probably second base. And I think we're going to be in on the next 2 years of shortstop classes once Didi's gone.
That's another thing. Biscuit brought it up earlier, which made me think of this when we brought up Stott. If Bohm does end up not being the peachy keen fielder at third, which again I don't think is going to happen, or Hoskins doesn't pan out as we all hope he does, if Bohm moves to first, Stott could probably also play third.
Right.
Because he has a stronger arm than Scott Kingery or others. So then that's when Kingery would probably be at second, or I guess short if you don't get a shortstop. He played the position with Gabe. But either way, he would be at one of those other 2 positions full time probably at that point. But it's nice to have flexibility. Heck, if he does compare to Brandon Crawford, he's had some pretty good power years as a shortstop too. So that wouldn't be a bad thing. He hasn't always had the best average years, but I could care less. Drive people in, hit home runs, field with the best of them. That's good enough for me.
I agree. We're already 24 minutes into this recording, and we haven't even started talking about the pitching.
Oh, God.
And before we even get to that, I'm going to bring up the catching position. I don't think it really needs to be talked about other than potentially the backup spot. I mean, JT's the guy as of now, and I've had my takes on JT and I've had my takes on Knapp, and I still love Knapp. I know for a fact pretty much that he's going to be the backup catcher. Barring injury, he's the backup guy going into opening day. And I don't know if either of you guys think that Marshawn has I love Marshawn, but I don't think he has a chance to make the opening day roster unless we plan on carrying 3 catchers, which I don't think we do. We could potentially, if Hoskins is hurt, we could carry 3 catchers and have JT play first, but that's not why you signed a guy to a 5-year, $115 million contract. Right. So, we could see opening week JT goes and plays first instead of a day off, and you end up carrying Knapp with Marchand. But I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts on that, or are you ready to go tackle the pitching position?
No, I agree with you on that. Knapp's the backup all the way. Marchand will benefit from getting minor league time whenever the hell the minor league season starts.
Yeah. Well, I completely disagree, guys. Andrew Michael Knapp's my starting catcher.
I support that more than anybody else in this town. So moving on from catcher then, I'm going to go through the bullpen first because I think that a lot of bullpen implications lead into the starting pitchers. I'm going to give my locks, opening day locks for the bullpen. And I think we can all agree Hector Neris, Archie Bradley, and Jose Alvarado are going to be there. They're the back-end guys. They're going to be the guys you count on in a pinch. Whichever one ends up being the closer, setup man, or, stopgap guy. And then my other opening day lock is Velazquez in the bullpen. He's not a starting pitcher. He's not going to be in the starting rotation. He is going to be the long man out of the bullpen. And I think if you go into the season knowing that he is the long man and knowing that he is not going to worry about being a starting pitcher, maybe again in a pinch if we need a starting pitcher for a day, we could call on him. But I think they want to keep him with a bullpen state of mind so that maybe he can improve, maybe he can really focus on getting good at throwing one inning. I mean, who knows? And then real quickly, just to run through who I think rounds out the 8-man bullpen after those 4. I think Ranger Suarez. I think we re-signed Jose Alvarez, wherever he is. Connor Brogdon and
wherever he's at on the planet right now.
I think we bring back Connor Brogdon, and I think we signed Chase Anderson to, I believe it was $3 to $4 million. I think it was $3 million.
It was 4.
Either Matt Moore and Chase Anderson combined for.
Yeah, one was 3, one was 4. Let's put it that way.
Right. I think I truly think that Moore makes the rotation. So I think a guy like Chase Anderson rounds out the end of the bullpen again as a long guy. So that bullpen is Neris, Bradley, Alvarado, Velazquez, Suarez, Alvarez, Brogdon, and Anderson. I'm gonna throw this to you, Biscuit. Any thoughts on that? Any changes? Any guys that you think should make it over any of them? What's your thought process?
I have written down Archie Bradley, Neris, Jojo Romero, Brogdon, Jose Alvarado, and then here's where it gets a little hairy. Did you have a 9-man bullpen or an 8-man bullpen?
I did 8 because I think we're going to carry a 5-man bench.
I think so too. I did 8 too. So right now, my locks, and I have a few more definite locks than you, but my locks are Bradley, Neris, Romero, Brogdon, Alvarado. Those are my definites right now. I think, as you mentioned, Vince Velasquez, his days in the rotation are going to be limited. I think he's going to be the bullpen guy. Ranger Suarez, I think, is going to get that other 7th-man spot. And then here's where the competition comes in. One guy I kind of want to keep an eye out for. I don't have a feeling that he's going to break with camp, but I'm really interested to see what Neftali Feliz is going to do. Obviously hasn't pitched in the majors in a couple of years, but I think it was Alex Carr tweeted a video of him months ago when we signed him of his slider, and it was still pretty nasty. Love to see what a guy like that could bring to the bullpen. Obviously, he had a lot of success when he was younger in his career, but fell off, didn't pitch in the majors for the last couple of years. But it could be him, David Hale, Sam Coonrod, Raymond Rosso. The list kind of goes. Who we signed. Right. The list really kind of goes on and on, but those are who I'd expect to be competing for that last spot. But the locks being, Bradley, Neris, Romero, Brogdon, Alvarado. Those are going to be the guys I think get the most of bulk of the innings out of the bullpen.
I don't disagree with you there. Jojo Romero was somebody I had as a fringe guy. I also had Sam Coonrod coming out of potentially not making the team. He could end up, dropping down to the AAA to start the year. And David Hale, I have a feeling he's gonna break camp, but I don't want to see it. I really don't. And then that's the wild cards is Phillies and oh my God, I forgot his name already. The guy we just
Hector
brought
Rondon.
up. Yes.
Hector Rondon.
The wild cards, guys that could easily make the team, have proven that they have it. It's just a matter of are they good enough still right now. Borek, what are your thoughts?
Well, Biscuit stole my secret weapon guy that I was going to mention, so I'll go with Hector Rondon as my secret weapon guy. Then, because I also I think one of those two guys is probably going to show some pizzazz again, if I can't think of a better word to use right now. Spunk, there we go. Again, in their game. And I think that's either going to be the Phillies that we signed or the Rondon. I know we signed a couple other relievers to minor league deals, but I feel like those two are the best and most likely to pan out because they've had past very solid success in the MLB compared to others that we just signed kind of hoping that they could do something. Obviously, my locks are the same. Biscuit pretty much had it. It's Bradley, Alvarado. I think Brogdon, he has a huge arm. He's a huge guy. I think he has a lot of potential. I like him as a lock as well. It's a shame Sir Anthony Dominguez can't be a lock. And then an interesting other guy to throw in there as well is if he does really well in camp, I wonder if they will use Medina as a reliever to get a major league experience before they use him as a starter. So that was another guy that I was kind of thinking of when I was making my list. Jojo Romero, I think, should be in there too. Ranger as well, and then Vince. I'm assuming we'll find out you put Howard in the rotation, but I didn't have Chase Anderson in my bullpen because I think he'll crack the starting rotation, and Howard will either be in the bullpen or get stamina by being in AAA. But I think those would definitely be my locks, and obviously Neris. I don't think I threw Neris in my locks, but he's obviously in the locks. That was an obvious one, so I just forgot to mention it. But as for the 8th spot, that's entirely what Biscuit said. I'm 100% with it. I don't even know who Bailey Falter is. I'm looking at my roster right now. It's Bailey Falter. Who the hell is it? Maybe he'll end up doing something. But usually I know who most of the people are. I have no idea who the heck that is.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I think that's somebody in the I think they protected him from Rule 5 would be my guess. I honestly I can't remember. I it's sad we're a Phillies podcast. We're all diehard fans and none of us have ever heard of this guy on the 40-man roster. But
I'm like, wait, who is this? Yeah, I know David Jones. I've watched him pitch. David Jones is that big lanky lefty that people think has some potential to be a decent bullpen lefty. Originally, some people said he could be that lanky starter. I never thought that was the case. Right. But he could be a pretty solid lefty maybe out of the bullpen. It's good to have lefty depth because you need good left-handed pitching to succeed in the majors. So he's another guy. If he goes off, I could definitely see. When you're 6'5", 233 and bring it pretty good with a good breaking ball, you're not gonna have to fight too hard if you have a pretty good preseason. So that would kind of be, and then also Coonrod would be another guy for the final spot in the bullpen because all these guys have good stuff. It's just exactly what you said, Sean. Who's gonna hone it in and be the dude that has the control and shows he can be the man to actually pitch within the strike zone out of that group? That's who's going to get the 8th spot.
I completely agree. And there's no guarantee we sign Alvarez. That's Jose Alvarez. I know it's switching gears a little bit, but that's somebody that I think will end up coming back. It's somebody that we could get on a $2 to $3 million deal. I'm shocked another team hasn't scooped him up already. But we did kind of fill that spot in Alvarado where he's the hard throwing lefty, a guy that can get out those tough left-handed batters. And then I do agree. I do think Jojo Romero, I forgot how much he helped in the pen last year. I do think he might end up breaking camp, but it's so hard with so many of these guys. And like I said, I had Chase Anderson in the bullpen because my opening day rotation and I know I'm kind of moving right on from the bullpen, but we can always go back on that with some of these takes. Again, locks in the rotations, probably Nola, Wheeler, and Eflin. Eflin's my number 3. Screw any other opinions. I like the people that are saying, oh, he's a 4, he's a 5, whatever. He pitched like a 3 last year, and with the right pitching coach in the last 2 years, he's shown that he deserves the number 3 spot as of right now, unless Howard shows something
a
else.
sinker ball to throw up in the zone.
Exactly. And my take, and I know both of you guys kind of said you disagreed with this, is Howard is the number 4 going into the season in the rotation. I truly believe he's going to get starter innings. I truly believe going into spring training he's going to impress like he did in the minors. And then I think we signed Moore for a reason. He was with the Rays from 2011 to 2016. He had really good numbers with the Rays. Girardi coached for the Yanks in the same division. He probably saw Moore a lot. And then, last season, first of all, he's a lefty. I think that's huge. But this is one of those buy low and have faith in him guys that he had a 2.65 ERA in Japan last year, and that's not easy to do. So, I mean, he's only 31. This is a guy that can easily have a bounce back year. It's sad how easy it was to persuade me that Matt Moore is going to be the best 5th man in the entire MLB. But that's just my prediction. And I think Chase Anderson gives him a run for his money, or he sucks it up and goes to the bullpen after spring training. What's your take on that? I'll throw it to Biscuit.
First and foremost, obviously Nola, Wheeler at the top. I completely agree with you about Zach Eflin. I'm done with the Zach Eflin slander. The guy's pitched throughout his career probably as well as a competent 4th or 5th guy in a rotation can do. And I truly think with the right pitching coach and getting him in the right headspace, he can be a very solid pitcher. So I completely agree with you about that. I'm very confident in his ability to be a solid 3. After those 3 guys, now we're playing some games here. Personally, I don't think you sign both Chase Anderson and Matt Moore to major league, deals unless they're going to start somewhere on this team, whether it's the bullpen or the rotation. And I think right now, for the sake of the rotation, it's their spots to lose. I think if there's some serious competition with Spencer Howard, it might be a different story. But I don't think Spencer Howard's a lock to make this opening day roster, unfortunately. I think they're really concerned about his ability from not being able to get through that many innings last year, now going from 60 games to 162. I just don't see a situation where he starts more than 20 plus games and hits, I'd be shocked if he really even went more than 150 innings or so. And I think either 2 things are going to happen. He's going to start the season on time and they're going to shut him down to maybe if there's a postseason, maybe he'll pitch in the postseason. I don't know, but I think they'll shut him down sometime in August, or they're going to bring him up later in the season. So he's, ready to go down the stretch and into the postseason. I think the second situation's more likely. But right now, I think Nola, Wheeler, and Eflin at the top 3, and then I think it's Chase Anderson and Matt Moore spots to lose right now.
Yeah, Howard, to me, I mean, I'm always bigger on prospects. I always give them way more, confidence than they really deserve. Mm-hmm. But to me, from what I saw from Howard, I wasn't impressed, but I do think that he breaks camp and comes up with a team. But I could 100% see the Phillies doing Phillies things and letting him stay down there until mid-July before they even let him come up. But I don't know. What do you got, Borek? What is your starting 5?
Yeah. Well, before that, I will say Howard I'm confident in. I just think from now with his stamina, if his stamina can't develop, that's why I messaged in the group chat. I think he's going to be a very good 3, and I'm more confident in Abel with the highlights I've seen and the talk of him being more stamina savvy, like very working on his body and stuff like that. I think he might be the more guy that might emerge as your top ace type level at a certain point, and Howard might be the more, I'm trying to think of a good comparison of like a great 3rd starter. But maybe one will come to me. But like a very good third starter, like how you said Eflin could be one of the best threes in baseball. That's probably what Howard would be at one point. I'm just not sure if his stamina will equate to a 1-2. That's all with him. I think otherwise you'll be fine. It's just if you only pitch 5 2/3 or 6 innings most of the time, you're probably not going to be a 1-2. You're probably going to be more of a 3-4, but you'll be a very good 3-4 if you pitch to a 2.9 ERA, even pitching that amount of innings, and he has the capability to do that. I just think because of his stamina, they'll probably start him in the minors. That's why, for me, I have the same locks as the top three in Nola, Wheeler, and Eflin. And then I think because all those guys are right-handers, I would say Matt Moore would be the 4. So you actually have a left-hander before you have another right-hander. And then you would put – the only reason I think, honestly, some people in their mocks have Moore as a 3 is so you put a lefty in the middle. It's not a diss, I think, to Zach Eflin by most people. I think it's just you have the lefty splitting the middle rather than righty, 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 lefty, righty. I think that's honestly why some mock rotations have had Matt Moore as a 3 spot, just simply for that reason. And thank God we finally have a freaking lefty in our rotation. I mean, it's been long enough since we have actually had a lefty in our rotation. I mean, it only took the Phillies, 7 years to get another decent lefty in their rotation since Cole Hamels left. So now don't get me wrong, I'm not calling Matt Moore Cole Hamels, but I'm just saying he's a good lefty. Chase Anderson, though, I've always actually thought that he was a pretty solid innings eater early in his career, even until 19. He still pitched 139 innings in 2019. And had his best season with Milwaukee in 17. He's another guy. We're picking people that had 2. When we talked about, you talked about Gonzalez, he had a great 2017. Chase Anderson's best year is 2017 with a 2.74 ERA. And when he went 12-4. He has a career 4.06. I can't find his ERA plus one here, but his WHIP is a 1.275. And his WAR is a career 8, so that's actually pretty good. And he's a contact guy. That's the key with this team. The key with this team with the rotation is everyone has to do better at fielding this year. We have a lot of contact guys, other than Nola, who strikes out a decent amount of people, even though that's not his game. And
like
then
the worst hitting pitcher I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah. So, I would say those are only your strikeout guys. Eflin's more of a ground ball guy. Chase Anderson is exclusively always been a contact guy. Matt Moore used to have more strikeout stuff when he still had the quicker fastball, but now that he's had injuries, he's been more of that lesser version, like a poor man's Cliff Lee, kind of locating his pitches more than blowing them. And I think that's a good thing because I want people that actually can hit the damn strike zone in this rotation. And I think fielding is going to be the big thing that might hold back the rotation because that's the only thing that's held back Eflin in the past. Errors that then make his numbers over time look worse because you let in the unearned run and then you let in more runs because the inning continue. So I think that will be my rotation, but the key for the rotation is actually the team vastly improving in the field.
I think of all the hot takes we've had on this particular podcast right now, calling Chase Anderson or comparing him to Cliff Lee, it might be the hottest.
That wasn't Chase Anderson.
Borek, that's almost slander, man.
I compared Matt Moore to a poor man.
Matt Moore. Sorry, Matt Moore.
Yeah.
You know what? I actually agree with that then.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that wasn't Chase Anderson. I compared lefty to lefty. I compared.
Right. Yeah. I got those mixed up. That's on me.
You really are Gabe Kapler comparing another, frail lefty to a legend in Cliff Lee.
Well, because I feel, but the thing is, like, I'm always pulling for prospects too, but I always pull for those guys until I see they blatantly can't stay healthy. Because he stayed healthy in Japan. He went over to Japan and figured out a way to stay healthy. So I feel like maybe something in their culture, I don't know what worked out, but something made him stay healthy. But I feel like that should translate. Like if you were able to stay healthy over there, you shouldn't just all of a sudden get injured in America. Like that doesn't really make much sense. So maybe he changes like motion and stuff. Obviously, I don't watch Japanese baseball. I don't have any way to watch that. But maybe he changes motion and stuff, and that's usually what pitchers do if they get injured. They find a way to change their delivery, and that's how they avoid getting injured over time. So I think poor man's. I mean, this was a guy that was ninth in the Cy Young at one time when he was with the Rays. He was supposed to be one of the better lefties in baseball before injuries prevailed. So if Japan got him, not back to that, but back for the good part, I wouldn't even be surprised if he has. I said before I would be happy with a 4.2 ERA, I think, in last podcast, because he's a 3.4 or 4.5, I mean, but I wouldn't be shocked if his ERA is under 4, as long as this team can actually field the damn baseball. That's the key to that.
I agree, and I mean, maybe it seems like he turned his career around when he went over to Japan. Like I said earlier, 2.65 ERA last season. Biscuit, anything more to add to the rotation before we wrap this thing up?
Or anything
just
more?
that I don't know if it's so much of what he's doing with Japanese culture as Borek mentioned. But look, here's something to consider.
That was a joke.
Here's something to consider. I'm pretty sure he had Tommy John surgery. He had a bad injury and was coming off Tommy John surgery within the last, I want to say, 5 seasons. So it's very likely that the guy just never was able to catch his footing, and now being, a handful of years removed, maybe starting to kind of catch back up to speed. Obviously, I don't think he's going to be the starter that he ever once was projected to be. However, what's encouraging to me is that even though he's, 31, 32, his arm isn't as taxed as most starters are at his age. Like, he really doesn't have that many innings under his belt. So I am optimistic he can be a serviceable, if not just serviceable, maybe good pitcher for this team. I'm pretty optimistic about Matt Moore.
Love the optimism. As Mr. Optimistic on the pod with you, Biscuit. I agree. I love being optimistic about this team. This team that drives me absolutely insane 24 hours a day, every day of the year.
If we're not optimistic, we're just going to fucking cry.
As a Philly sports fan, that is completely warranted.
Yeah.
To wrap that up on some final thoughts, I have a little. You guys probably have your own final thoughts, but I have a little fun little idea for a final thought here. We'll try to keep it quick. We're already at about 46 minutes in this. What do you think? So say the Phillies go into this year with the 26-man roster that we have kind of all predicted. Getting certain guys getting injured, whatever the case is. Let's pretend it's July 30th and you are Dave Dombrowski. What major trade? We're going to do like a random, we have no idea what's going to happen prediction. Who do you think the Phillies trade for at the deadline if they are absolutely competing? They're in second place behind the Braves or the Mets, and they're right there. They're only a couple games back. They need that one guy to plug in one hole. Who are they getting? Borek, I'm going to start with you.
I would say the sore thumbstick out would probably be adding another outfielder, so I would probably go with that, because also more so than great relief pitching, normally there's a crap ton of outfielders on the final year of your deal that you see rumored at the trade deadline almost every single season. So you could get one of those guys, and if you need it, I would say that's probably where the hole's going to be, because say if Kingery even does well and he hits more like a contact guy and doesn't provide much pop, the Phillies might want more pop and still want to go out and get someone. And then as Biscuit said, if Hazley hits really well, he is more of a slap hitter and a contact guy, so they might want more pop. So that's why I would say probably one more outfielder that brings more RBI and big in terms of power bat potential.
So you're not going so much as big as you're going for fill a hole and kind of just roll with whatever we got for the rest of the year?
Yeah, because with the way this bullpen is, we went from having a bullpen of no depth to now having guys like we talked about might not make the roster because we signed a couple people. So I feel like if that all works out, you should be fine. And then the center field might be the thing that sticks out a little bit in the end.
All right. I don't hate that. In that scenario, we're filling what we think we need to fill at the beginning of the year. I like that. Hopefully they're going in with a thought process of trading for a center fielder. Biscuit, Go ahead. I'll throw it to you. Let's hear some hot takes.
I think anything goes if a hitter's really struggling. I think the only people that they wouldn't consider upgrading are obviously if they're struggling that badly is, guys like Harper, Hoskins, or Real Muto. I think, if Gene or Didi or, Alec Boehm or center, like if there's a hitter struggling that it's evident if we need to make a push, then we'll need another bat. Anything goes then. But I think you're going to see a big reliever come in this summer. I think they're going to go get a star out of the bullpen, someone who could come in, really lock that back end closer spot down. I love Archie Bradley, and I do think the guy's going to fit in here like a glove. But I just don't see him as a lockdown closer. I think, him, Hector Neris, Alvarado, they're going to eat some big innings for us, like you mentioned earlier. But I think they'll just need one more guy that's going to put them from being, a mediocre bullpen to really where they should be, about average bullpen. I think that'll get the job done. But I think the rotation, knock on wood, God forbid if someone gets hurt, maybe then a spot opens up and you go after a guy. But I really don't think you have the big pieces to land, a big bat or a frontline starter unless you're really giving up a lot in the farm, which you don't want to do. That's why I think a closer is a little bit more feasible to go out and tackle at the deadline.
I love that idea. I'm always down to add more bullpen pieces. I do think if there is a minor league season, I do think that, some of the young guys in AAA that have been proving that they have stuff, and Borek definitely knows more of those names than I do. Or Rosso, any Damon Jones, anybody can come up in the middle of the year. But I agree. I do hope we go out and get that closer type at the deadline. But here's my take. And I want to go super bold here. I have a feeling that the infield is going to look immaculate, except for second base. I have a feeling that either Segura gets hurt or his average dips below 250, and that is the only thing that he is good for is slapping the ball. And if he's batting under 250 by the trade deadline, he is absolutely useless. And I think that he is a piece that you would move in a trade for a either rental second baseman if you're really in a spot to compete. You either get a rental or you go get a guy like Whit Merrifield from the Royals, just signed an extension in the 2019 offseason, bought out his arbitration years. He's a guy that has been rumored to be moved for a while now, and the Royals are not in a position to compete anytime soon. That's somebody I could easily see the Phillies going and getting, a guy that is an upgraded Gene Segura in a way, a much more consistent, a much better fielder, all-around better player than Gene Segura. If not him, you go get one of the rental shortstops on the market and move either him or Didi to second, because that rounds out the infield perfectly. And any of those guys are Javi Baez. I could easily see the Cubs moving on from him, especially if they don't think that they're going to re-sign him. Trevor Story, which the Rockies kind of came out and said they're not going to trade, or even Carlos Correa. I mean, the Astros compete every year, but maybe with the loss of Springer and they might finally start to die off. Who knows? Any of those guys, I truly think that the Phillies are going to be in there. And I think once we get them, even though it is just a rental, if they're not looking to, hit the free agent market, I could see the Phillies extending them long term. Didi ending up being, a short-term second baseman for the next two to 1 year. But that's my hot take. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that before we sign off.
I mean, I would have to, out of the other two, I already like him in all aspects. I hate Carlos Correa's personality. He's probably a good man outside of baseball. I just detest his interviews. I think he's obnoxious and annoying when he does interviews. He kind of, like, if people know hockey, reminds me of how obnoxious somebody like Malkin was back in the day. Like, he's just where Malkin got quieter now. Well, hopefully that happens with Correa over time, but he's still not. So, I mean, I think I would be fine with his play on the field. I think he would just hopefully grow up off the field and in interviews and not be a pest. That's what I would hope happens if we were to get Carlos Correa. Trevor Story and Javier Baez, I love everything about.
Oh, for sure.
Fine with both of them in all aspects. But that's the only thing I really had on Correa, where I already said my big take earlier, and that was I think King going to end up being pretty good over time or this year. So I don't have
Right.
anything else there.
Biscuit, anything else before we sign off?
You know what? I got nothing really grand here. I just think, regardless of what happens at this point with the rest of the offseason, let's just take a step back and appreciate that the Phillies spent some money. Because, like we mentioned on the last show a couple months ago, things were pretty bleak, and now they're back up to over $190 million on the payroll. You brought two big stars back in Didi and Jacob Tyler. Let's ride this offseason off on a hot note. Go get us another bench. Get us another solid bullpen arm. Let's fucking ride. Go Phillies.
What a way to send off this episode. I absolutely love it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This was a great podcast, I think, and I love talking potential opening day rosters. It's one of my favorite things to talk about every single year. For Sean, Biscuit, and Borek, this has been the Chasing the Pennant podcast. Thank you for listening.
I used to be revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.